Talk Radio 570 KVI, America's first conservative talk station. It's time for a common sense current in a sea of insanity.
Are you ready?
This is the Ari Hoffman Show.
Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Katie Wilson decides to encourage everybody to join a Soros-based activist organization. I kid you not. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
I got an email from the mayor of Tacoma this morning. I'm just going to read this to you a little bit, and you'll very clearly see why this is the top news of the day. Statement from Mayor Anders Ibsen regarding recent ICE activity. Like many across the country, I am outraged by the killing of Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis, and now the shootings by ICE agents in Portland. Early reports of federal agents' use of force are deeply disturbing and further demonstrate the reckless disregard of recent federal enforcement in local communities. I stand with impacted families, with communities seeking justice, and with local leaders calling for answers in the face of these tragedies. Bad timing, my dude. Really bad timing. This thing came out about 2 hours. 2 hours after the new video came out, which showed the ICE agents' perspective on what happened in Minneapolis. Now, I'm going to play the video for you, and a lot of you are saying, Ari, this is radio, not television. Why are you playing this for us? I'm going to narrate what you're missing, but there's a few things you need to hear. Now, let me tell you who the players are in this video. The ICE agent is the man's voice you hear. There are two women. One is Renee Nicole Good, who's driving the car. The other one is her wife, who is standing outside of the car with a cell phone. I'll also describe the other things you're seeing in the background. And what you first see is this car still across the road in a weird diagonal angle. And the agent is checking out the vehicle, and then the wife starts harassing him. Give a listen. Okay, there's activists on the side watching all this and filming this. He's walking around the car, checking it out, and then he sees Renee Nicole Good.
I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you.
It's okay, we don't change our plates every morning, just so you know.
Now, that's interesting she mentions that. He's looking at the plates and they say Missouri on them, as we've mentioned before. Continue.
It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
Okay, that's it right there. So the ICE agents are ordering her to get out of the car, and you hear the wife say, "Drive, baby, drive." Here it is again.
Get out of the car. Oh!
That's the impact. That's the shots. And then what happens next? Now, this video, if you watch it, and it's everywhere on social media, in my opinion, completely exonerates the cop. Some people are going to say he shouldn't have been standing in front of the vehicle. He was walking around the vehicle. He wasn't planting himself in front of the vehicle. So, Mayor of Tacoma, really bad timing. In fact, this video absolutely destroys the left's entire narrative about what happened in Minneapolis. You have the activist wife who's encouraging her, drive, baby, drive, as she tries to flee from the agents who are ordering her to get out of the vehicle from whatever happened before, where it seems like they were interfering with whatever ICE was doing. Would it help if I told you that the two of them also went to activist training through radical leftist anti-ICE organizations? They did this to themselves. They put themselves in a bad situation. Does that mean she deserves to die? No, of course not. But just like George Floyd, why are we all of a sudden all up in arms about how she was the greatest person? She was a poet. She was a scholar. She was a mother. You know, a mother doesn't put themselves in a situation where you might get shot. And when you're around a lot of guys with guns interfering with their operations and you don't know who they're going after, you are putting yourself in danger. When you drive a car at an ICE agent, you are putting yourself in danger. Is it a tragedy? Yes. The whole thing was avoidable. This wasn't a peaceful protest. She literally hit an ICE agent with the car. The phone gets knocked around. She hits him so much. You can see it from his perspective. And by the way, good thing he was videoing because they didn't have body cameras. According to the Department of Homeland Security, they weren't wearing body cameras. This guy, this cop, as we discussed yesterday, had been dragged before. He's probably covering his own butt by filming this thing. And now that we have the video, is it a tragedy? Absolutely. Is he at fault? I don't blame him. Is it bad? Yes. Should she be dead? No. But she shouldn't have been interfering with ICE operations either. Now, there is a little humor in this video as well. You see some odd things in the background. I came in this morning and young Zach from the morning show that you can listen to from 6 to 9 a.m. right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Young Zach says, have you seen the T-Rex? I said, what? Have you seen the T-Rex? Apparently the neighbors who are across the street in this video have a giant full-size T-Rex on their front yard stepping on a car. And you see it in the background. And apparently this thing has been in the background of multiple still shots. I hadn't noticed it till Zach pointed it out to me, where people are going, it's got to be AI. There's a T-Rex in the background. So, there's this giant T-Rex stepping on a sedan. I said, if you're going to buy a giant T-Rex for your house, wouldn't you have it stepping on something like a Ford Explorer? Now, apparently, this T-Rex is actually known as a road trip tourist site because it's such a weird thing to have out in your driveway. There's a full-size car. It was probably a real car at one point. Maybe it gotten crushed by a monster truck, but it's being stepped on by a full-size T-Rex. It's one of the craziest things I've ever seen. I've been slightly obsessed with this morning. As soon as Mike comes in, before he even takes his jacket off, dude, gotta show you this. But then, what's even weirder is what's next door. Now, if you live next door to a giant T-Rex, you gotta shine on your own, right? You wanna not be outdone by the people with the giant T-Rex. What's next door? A 10-foot, full-size, great white shark. A great white shark is on their lawn. What is going on in this neighborhood? I mean, the holidays are over. They weren't Christmas decorations. Apparently, they're year-round because somebody got a Google street image of both the T-Rex and the shark right next to each other there. In fact, there's a still shot that's going around the internet of the ICE agent standing there looking at what just happened, and the T-Rex is just roaring at you. I don't know why I find this so funny. I just do. You know what's not funny? Is the amounts of people who've tried to hit officers. We mentioned that this ICE agent was previously dragged a few months ago by somebody trying to interfere with ICE, by somebody trying to elude ICE. Apparently, ramming attacks against ICE have gone up 3,200%. We saw yesterday in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, while these protests were going on, that people were trying to stand in front of ICE vehicles, that people are trying to hit officers with their vehicles. That is illegal, but they're emboldened by people like Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, the one who was weeping next to George Floyd's gold casket. Why we have a gold casket for a drug dealer, money counterfeiter, who also held a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach is beyond me. Then you've got Tampon Tim Walz, who's ramping up the rhetoric, saying we're going to take on the federal government and have our own deadly insurrection. He's going to mobilize the National Guard. They're encouraging this all over again. They are making the same mistakes that they made in 2020, or they're doing it intentionally, and it's not really mistakes. This is what they want to be doing. Ramp up the insanity. It seems like that's exactly what's going on. That's what they want to happen. And if you say it enough that ICE is Nazis and that they're doing things illegal and you are the resistance and they're the gazpacho or whatever he called them, then guess what? People are going to treat it as such and take matters into their own hands. And it seems like that's exactly what happened here. Now let's get back to the mayor of Tacoma for a moment. The mayor of Tacoma sends out this email, and he also mentioned Portland. Now, yesterday, as the show was wrapping up, we were getting details that the people in Portland who ICE shot were actually members of Tren de Aragua, the violent Venezuelan gang. So hang on. I just want to see how broken the left's brains are this week. Let's see. What have they supported this week? The dictator, drug runner from Venezuela. You've got Maduro. They've supported him. Okay. They've supported fraudsters stealing billions of dollars from you and me. They're now supporting gang members. That's in addition to last year and the year before supporting terrorists. What won't they support? Is this TDS, or is this just their brains are so broken? Because here it's just being oppositional. It's just everything is wrong. I don't even think this is about Trump derangement syndrome anymore. I think their brains are truly broken. They're the ones who brought in the gang members into this country in the first place. It's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. And these protesters were just waiting for the opportunity to go back to the ICE facility. Now, in Minnesota, I'm not sure if you're going to see what you saw in 2020, because what do you see on the ground in all these videos? You see snow. You see ice. It is cold in Minnesota this time of year. Really cold. Us people here in Washington can't even comprehend how cold it is there in Minnesota. But it gets really, really cold. So are we looking at a lot of protests? I'm not sure. They tried to establish their own autonomous zone last night. You know, they still have George Floyd Square. Yeah, they actually sectioned off an area of the town. All the businesses have left and the whole area is graffitied and crime-ridden, but they have George Floyd Square. Shows you what would have happened if we left the Capitol Hill autonomous zone out a few more years. They tried to section off this area as an autonomous zone. So as much as Tim Walz and Jacob Fry want to say, we're the resistance, they broke that thing down this morning. They broke it down this morning because they know what happens if they allow that again. They're already a national joke. They're trying to be less of a national joke. They want people to take them seriously. And having an autonomous zone in your town, well, you've just given Donald Trump the argument. Because then he says, you can't run your town. You let these lunatics take over a few blocks of it. They shut that down, as Mike would say, with the quickness. But in Portland last night, it was fascinating to watch how quickly everybody flocked to the ICE facility in Portland, where they were rioting all summer long. Basically, they were rioting until the rains returned for the fall in Portland, and then they went away. But what, everybody gets off from the local Starbucks and decides, hey, let's go protest ICE? I want you to listen to this video that I clipped from a live stream last night of the protest. What you're hearing in it, you're seeing somebody get arrested or detained by the ICE agents or the Portland police. I couldn't really tell which one they were. And this person's being dragged away, and two people are filming it. What you're hearing is the man with the accent is the guy with the camera, and there's a woman next to him. Just listen to what they said.
He's been laughing. Sorry,
Yeah.
I need you to have a white person near you so they can beat me up first.
If anything, I'm going to be the first one, not you.
No, throw me in front. I have really good insurance.
Okay, I'm going to be recording here, okay?
Wait a second. She just said, I need to be with you, so they beat me up first, and I got really good insurance? What the hell are you talking about? Talk about white savior guilt insanity. That's crazy. And this isn't somebody who's saying it for the camera. This is somebody who probably doesn't even know they're being recorded at this point. This is how they actually think. It's crazy. and then the left trying to change the narrative on this whole thing. The worst one was Jasmine Crockett. Listen to the crazy, soon-to-be unemployed Jasmine Crockett because her seat's been erased from existence.
I remember when Charlie Kirk got killed. Do you? Do you remember what our response was? Our response wasn't to sit there and pretend like it was okay. Is it okay because you have a badge? Because the last time I checked, allegedly no one is above the law.
Hang on a second, lady. Crazy lady. How many clips do we play on this show of the left mocking Charlie Kirk getting killed? How many things do we still have where teachers are mocking Charlie Kirk getting killed? You guys were doing everything you could to diminish the shooter. Oh, it was justified. Well, it's how Charlie spoke. That's what you guys did. Don't try and change the narrative now and rewrite history, because it just ain't true. You guys can lie about it all you want, but we know what actually happened. You guys tried to make it, it's not such a big deal. Oh, Charlie had it coming. That's what you guys did. And now you're trying to say, oh, you were all polite about it? Every single one of your tweets couldn't just say, this is tragic, this is horrible. Every single one of them had to say something like, I didn't agree with Charlie Kirk, but nobody deserves to die. And then you guys talked about why you thought he deserved to die. Spare me your revisionist history garbage. But you see, the mayor of Tacoma, the elected officials in Minnesota, Democrats across the country, Jasmine Crockett, they're trying to make hay out of this. They're trying to make this the big next political thing. It's a new year. We need a new fight. Our polls aren't increasing. How can we make Trump, how can we make Republicans less popular with the electorate? And it's amazing to me that this email from the Tacoma mayor was probably pre-scheduled to go out. I think it's very, very likely it was pre-scheduled to go out. And they scheduled it last night at some point because like 5 people got to sign off on the thing before it goes anywhere. And then guess what? Bad timing, because that new video was released this morning. I think by the time I left my house to get to the studio, which was about 30 minutes today, that thing had already gone viral because my phone blows up. I got messages from Phil. I got messages from my wife. Did you see the video? Did you see the video? I got messages from listeners. I got people posting it on social media. Bad timing. But the Democrats don't care about the facts. They're going to look at this video and they're going to say, this changes nothing, because I already saw some of them sharing it and saying this changes nothing. And you know what? You're right. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the fact that this woman intentionally inserted herself into an ICE operation, into the line of fire. And it doesn't matter if it was ice or slippery or not. That video camera, that cell phone footage is from the ICE agent's perspective. If I saw a car coming at me like that, you'd better believe I would pull out a gun and open fire. I definitely would, especially if, God forbid, I'd been dragged by a vehicle before. Once again, did the woman deserve to die? Probably not. But she did this to herself. She did this to herself. And when we come back, my friends, you're going to hear the latest insanity, where it's not just the mayor of Tacoma who's weighing in on this craziness. Katie Wilson doesn't just weigh in. She wants you to join a George Soros group to protest. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show.
Happens in Seattle is coming your way. This is the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
I got an email yesterday from the Seattle Department of Transportation. And what did it say? It was for everybody who has a street use permit. This didn't go out to the media. This came to me because I used to have a street use permit for an area I kept my trucks that was partially in a city right-of-way, so I needed city permission to use part of the right-of-way for my trucks, even though we debated where the property line actually was. What did this email say? It talked about how there might be peaceful protests, and they expected the protests to remain peaceful, and that's why you should secure all outdoor furniture, and you should lock up everything on your job site, and any loose tables or chairs should be locked up, and you should put them away right away, very, very quickly. Get everything away because there might be protests in Seattle. Now, you and I both know that this is a standard email that goes out because anytime there's one of these national incidents, Seattle Department of Transportation sends out an email like this. This is not the first time. I think at least once a year, if not more, this email goes out and it's always the same thing. But what I found interesting was I compared it to old emails last night. And Mike, this is the first time it said a cause. Normally when they go out, they say, we're expecting protests, and because we're expecting protests, you should put away your tables and chairs and secure your job sites. The fact that they have to send that out because they know what's going to happen in Seattle is insane in the first place. That means you assume the police are not going to do their jobs or be ordered not to do their jobs, and you assume the protests are going to be violent, not peaceful. That's the problem with that email. But I checked, and previously, the emails didn't say what incident triggered the protests. Previously, they just said, we're expecting protests. This one goes because of what happened in Minnesota and, the whole our hearts go out to. But nonsense. How you can tell Katie Wilson is now running the show with things like that. Well, Katie Wilson yesterday, right after the shooting in Portland of the Tren de Aragua gang member and the woman he was trafficking. Yeah, let's be clear about who was shot in Portland because the media keeps trying to say, oh, it was just his husband and wife couple, and oh, so sad. Well, after this, Katie Wilson decides that she's going to release a video statement. And my friends, if you thought she was crazy before, this one is a doozy.
Yesterday, armed ICE agents in an unmarked vehicle detained 3 North Seattle neighbors at Evergreen Washelli Cemetery. I am furious at the federal government's abuse of power.
Okay, let's stop right there. Wait a minute. What is she talking about? Well, it turns out yesterday, ICE was conducting operations up near Aurora Avenue in North Seattle, near Evergreen Washelli. Now, we don't have a lot of details if these guys were working, like the grounds crew at Evergreen Washelli. I don't think they were customers of Evergreen Washelli in the ground because you don't get a lot of complaints from them. But you and I both know something that perhaps others don't. How did I get into this business? I became an activist because drug dealers and pimps and drug addicts had moved into the Jewish cemeteries, which are across the street from Evergreen Washelli. And they were dealing drugs in there, and there was prostitution going on in there, and they caused over $300,000 worth of damage to the Jewish cemeteries across the street from Evergreen Washelli. Who knows what was even going on at Evergreen Washelli during that time? Now, I know we took a lot of steps to secure the Jewish cemeteries, including hundreds of thousands of dollars in new fencing, electric gates that open and close, guards at night. We went crazy with this. We did as much as we possibly could because it was costing so much money. I don't know what Evergreen Washelli did, but if there's a hard target and there's a soft target, you're going to leave the hard target, you're going to go to the soft target, and I still see that there's a lot of homeless in the neighborhood. Were these more drug runners in North Seattle? Were they just grounds crew at Evergreen Washelli? We don't know. I reached out to ICE. I haven't heard back yet because I want to know. But if we find out these were drug dealers, because I assume that they were in the area, Katie Wilson's going to have some splaining to do. What else did she talk about?
It is unacceptable to kidnap people who are simply going about their lives.
Kidnap! Wow. Kidnap people who are going about their lives. Okay.
There is no place for this in Seattle. This latest abuse comes on the heels of the murder of Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis by federal agents. Renee was a poet, a caring neighbor, and a mother.
A poet, a caring neighbor, and mother who tried to run down a federal agent. Spare me your nonsense. By the way, it's not entirely clear whose neighbor she was. Did they recently move to Minnesota? Did they come to Minnesota for the protest? I'm seeing a lot of conflicting reports. I do know that car still has Missouri plates on it. Were they considering getting out of Minnesota? Who knows? Continue with the crazy.
Someone with a family whose community is now grieving unimaginable loss.
If you cared about your family, you want to put yourself in the way of ICE agents.
These are not abstractions. These are real people, real families, and real harm. I know many people in our community are frightened and outraged about the way ICE and other federal enforcement agencies are being deliberately deployed across the country to intimidate and harm our communities. I am heartbroken and outraged, too. This moment demands action. Here's what we're doing. Seattle is a welcoming city. We already have laws in place that forbid our local police from aiding ICE in most instances. The police will adhere to these laws. That's an important step. But it's also true that we have limited authority with regard to the actions of federal agencies. And I know that our existing laws are not enough to keep people safe.
So what you're saying is you have no authority here whatsoever. You can't do anything, but you're going to put on a show anyway. Okay, what's your solution?
So I'm working with Police Chief Barnes, City Attorney Evans, immigrant rights groups, and local leaders to identify every possible legal argument, public resource, and creative tool we can use to keep the people of Seattle safe.
Does that mean suing the Trump administration? It sounds like that's what's coming. More lawsuits against the Trump administration, but you guys keep losing them. So go ahead and spend our taxpayer dollars on something dumb like this.
This will take all of us. I urge you to sign up for the Washington for All ICE mobilization alerts.
Whoa! Whoa, 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 whoa. I went to Washington for All's website last night to check it out. Do you know some of their upcoming events? Aside from ICE protests, Protest Tesla, No Kings. It's an activist group. And with a little more digging, what do we find? This is an activist group funded by George Soros. So this wasn't a volunteer for community watch, get involved in cleaning up graffiti in Seattle, maybe think about working for my administration to help us take on the man. No, Katie Wilson is now a shill for George Soros and his far left funded organizations here in Seattle. Do you remember when she was running for office? I said the biggest danger is that Katie Wilson is a dum-dum. And it's who's going to use her for their purposes. And now it's becoming increasingly clear. Whatever activist wants whatever they want at that moment is going to use her as the empty vessel that she is to try and get it. And use the megaphone that she has as mayor of Seattle to try and achieve it.
And don't stop there. I encourage you to raise your voices and demand that every elected official does what they can to actually protect the people who make our neighborhoods home. This is a scary situation, and situations like this are when we show ourselves who we are and what we believe. Here in Seattle, we practice solidarity. Everyone should be safe in their homes, in their workplaces, and in their city. My message to our immigrant neighbors, this is your city. You should be safe here, and I'm determined to make it that way.
That's right, drug dealers. We're determined to make sure you are safe here. We want to make sure your business thrives. So go out there and deal all the drugs you want, wherever you want to, because the Seattle police, they're not going to arrest for that anymore. We already took care of that with the city attorney. We want everybody to feel safe, not you taxpayers who are paying the bill for her salary, $230,000 a year plus benefits. No, not you taxpayers. No, we don't want you to feel safe. We want the illegal alien criminals to feel safe in the city. Because after all, How much more violence do we need to prove that these gangs come to town to cause problems? How many more overdose deaths do we need? How many more people do we need to find in human trafficking? I assume that what I'm going to find when we finally get the rap sheets from ICE on these guys who were arrested at Evergreen Washelli Cemetery is that there were drugs going on up there. Because anybody who lives in North Seattle, especially near Aurora Avenue, you know what's going on up there. Prostitution, drug dealing, rampant lawlessness. But that's who Katie Wilson wants to be safe in this city. I drove to Georgetown last night on an errand. And as I was going to Georgetown, I hadn't been there in a little while, I could not believe how bad the homeless population has grown there. It was bad when my office used to be down there, when I used to have a family business down there. But then, I actually have to admit, it was getting slightly better because they were pushing the homeless away. I could not believe how many people I saw setting up tents there last night because they know Katie Wilson is in charge and nobody's going to bother them. It's insane how far we have fallen and how much worse yet it could get. And I want you to think about this. The trial is wrapping up for the autonomous zone against the city of Seattle for allowing it to happen, which let teenagers get killed. That case wrapped up yesterday. Closing arguments were yesterday. The jury has the case. If there was another armed occupation of 6 blocks of Seattle, Katie Wilson would probably set up an office to work in the middle of the autonomous zone. That's what you're dealing with here. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, my friends, federal government says they're going to be cracking down on the rampant fraud in Minnesota. Washington, Chicago, New York might be next. We'll tell you all about it. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
And corrupt. Yeah, sounds like DC. Time to wade into the swamp with the Ari Hoffman Show on 570 KVI.
Before we get into what the federal government is going to do about the fraud, another fraud has been exposed. And this time her name is Marjorie Taylor Greene. I like to say I just liked Marjorie Taylor Greene before it was cool, before it was trendy, before she was Marjorie Trader Greene. Clearly, she goes, okay, maybe I pushed it too far on the right. Maybe I want the attention of the left. Who knows what she's doing? Axios. Axios is most definitely not my little black book of the right-wing media. But Axios had a new story today. Now, remember, Marjorie Taylor Greene going on The View, trying to get in good with the left. So Axios burning her like this, they know what this is going to do with MAGA. What did they do? They printed a report. Do you remember when President Trump first got back into office, first got elected, and he went to a restaurant in Washington, D.C., and Code Pink, the radical activists, were there waiting for him in the restaurant? Now, for those of you who think it's no big deal, it's First Amendment rights, what's there in a restaurant? Knives, stabbing weapons, right? What could be in that restaurant? You got a lot of sharp implements in the restaurant. Plus, was anybody screening anybody before the president randomly decided to go in this restaurant? For all we know, you could have carried a gun in there. Apparently, Marjorie Taylor Greene is the one who may have told Code Pink. According to Axios, she was contacting the Trump detail regularly. She's the one who recommended he go to that restaurant and then was checking to be like, what time are you going to be there? What time are you going to be there? What time are you going to be there? So the Secret Service got this information to investigate whether or not it was Marjorie Taylor Greene who tipped off the Code Pink Looney Tunes to be waiting for the President of the United States inside a restaurant. Insane. Absolutely insane. I'll say it again because I love being right. I disliked her before it was cool. And now, for those of you who did like her, it's okay. It's okay. We all make mistakes. Even I've made mistakes sometimes. There was a time I thought I was wrong, but turns out I was wrong. It happens. Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene, not a friend of ours at all. And now she's doing everything she possibly can to get in the headlines because she wants to run for president. I think her chances are about the same as Jay Inslee's when he ran for president. Now, what's crazy is that with the Somalian fraud, it was detected. It was detected years ago. And apparently, nobody in the Biden administration did anything about it. According to John Solomon over at Just the News, couriers were taking huge amounts of money through airports, and TSA or anybody else wasn't detecting it?
It was literally a foreign ATM taking cash out of the United States to foreign destinations, and we don't know the reason why. But that is now under investigation by the FBI and HSI. And people say, well, is this normal? I mean, maybe this goes on at every airport. We got comparative statistics yesterday. The amount of money that these Somali couriers took out of the Minneapolis airport with the TSA flagging it daily was 99 times larger than all the cash that was declared in luggage going out of New York's JFK International Airport, one of the busiest international airports in America. 99 times more than what flies out of Dallas. 90% more, 90% more than what was flown out of Seattle, which is the most common airport for people to go to Asia from. This was an abnormally high amount of cash being stuffed in the luggage, being detected every day by the TSA. Because, by the way, the couriers they declared the money. They literally would say, hey, we got $1 million in our suitcase, which you have to do to get it through the airport. And nobody in the Biden administration thought it was unusual that $1 million of cash was moving in luggage out of the country, out of Minneapolis every day, way more than any other airport in America at the time. This is, I think, the second end of this welfare scam, which is where was this money going after it was defrauded?
So for the people who say, where was the money going, we know that right now all signs point to it was going to Al-Shabaab, a terrorist organization, and it was being funneled through them, whether for their use or for money laundering. But when you launder money, whoever's doing the laundering takes a fee. So either way, it was funding a terrorist organization. You don't notice that millions of dollars are being reported going through this airport? More than New York City? More than Seattle, Little Minneapolis Airport? More money's going through? Now, to clear up a common misconception, it's not illegal to fly with that much money. You just have to declare it if it's over $10,000. And they were declaring it. They were saying, we have the money, and we're taking it through your airport. And nobody did anything about it. So what are we going to do to crack down on this fraud? Here's J.D. Vance.
If you're a young parent struggling to afford childcare in the United States of America, there are programs that we have to make it easier for your kids to get in daycare, for your kids to get in preschool. Those programs should go to American citizens, not be defrauded by Somali immigrants and others. Make it hard for you to get the access to the resources you need. But number two, making it easier for people who shouldn't even be in this country to fleece the United States and our taxpayers to begin with. We have actually activated a major interagency task force to make it possible to get to the heart of this fraud. We have Department of Agriculture resources that are focused on SNAP fraud so that people who need food benefits can get them, but illegal aliens and other fraudsters don't. We have over 1,500 subpoenas that the Department of Justice has issued to get to the heart of the fraud ring. We've done almost 100 indictments, mostly Somali immigrants, but also a few others. And, of course, we're looking in with broad investigatory authority to a number of the instances of wrongdoing that we've seen in Minneapolis, but we also want to expand this. We know that the fraud isn't just happening in Minneapolis, it's also happening in states like Ohio. It's happening in states like California. And so what we're doing in order to help coordinate this remarkable interagency effort from the Trump administration, but also to make sure that we prosecute the bad guys and do it as swiftly and efficiently as possible, is we are creating a new Assistant Attorney General position who will have nationwide jurisdiction over the issue of fraud. Now, of course, that person's efforts will start and focus primarily in Minnesota, but it is going to be a nationwide effort because, unfortunately, the American people have been defrauded in a very nationwide way.
I cannot wait for them to get to Washington. I can't. And I would love to personally show them around. In my Dodge Charger, I'll take you driving around the city to show you. We'll go door to door. We'll go knocking on Leering centers here in Washington together. We'll throw Jonathan Cho, Cam Higbee in the back. We'll all go together. It'll be a team-building exercise. Be a lot of fun. Can't wait for this to happen. We'll go in the Hoffmobile. Now we're really vigilantes. That's what's going to happen. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, my friends, a Major League whistleblower is coming to Washington for a big conference, the one who blew the whistle on all the insanity of the gender clinics in local schools and hospitals. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
KVI, America's first conservative talk station. It's time for a common sense current in a sea of insanity.
Are you ready?
This is the Ari Hoffman Show.
Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up today at 4:30, Representative Michael Baumgartner will be joining us to weigh in on how he's combating the fraud, even though Bob Ferguson, Nick Brown, and Katie Wilson all refused to do so. But before we get to any of that, my friends, a Democrat may have given away the game on the state income tax they're going to hit us all with. Bob Ferguson has been saying millionaire tax, millionaire tax, millionaire tax, because they think that will be more palatable to everybody here in Washington. They're just taxing the millionaires. They're not taxing the rest of us. Well, it has been long my contention that what they're actually going to do is pass this massive, massive tax on the millionaires, and then just like with every other tax they do, spread it to everybody else over time. Now, mind you, this is not something that's going to solve our short-term budget problems. This is something that is going to be tied up in court for years and years and years. Now, the court, being the Washington State Supreme Court, will probably end up signing off on it because they're just a whole bunch of liberal crazies, but it will be law eventually. It's not going to solve your problem in the short term. They just want the tax because they just want to spend and spend and spend. So the other night, Bellevue Chamber of Commerce had an event with Representative Larry Springer, who's a Democrat. Brandy Cruz got a hold of the video from this event. And at this legislative preview event with the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce, Larry Springer said the quiet part out loud. In fact, he gave away the whole game.
Why should the public, while it's millionaires now, why should we believe Democrats? Why should the public assume that it's not going to be an income tax on them by 2031?
You shouldn't.
Hang on. Did he just say what I think he just said? You shouldn't assume that. He's saying the truth. Don't assume that. What we're going to do is we're going to expand it to include everybody. Doesn't get clearer than that. So wait a second. Brandy broke this story last night. Mike usually goes searching the news sources. You say, hey, Ari, I got this from Como. I got this from Fox. I got this from all these places. Did you see this on any news site at all this morning?
No.
Because I looked. I specifically went looking for this. Nobody covered it at all. At all. What, they don't want to say Brandy Cruz got the video? Is that what it is? Because they steal stuff all the time. They could just lie and say they had a reporter in the room. They're not interested in covering it. You know what's going to piss me off the most after this legislative cycle, which starts again on Monday? What's going to really set me off is we're going to be doing what we did last year and the year before and the year before, bringing you as much news as we can from the legislative cycle because the mainstream media won't. And then after the session, after the mainstream media has been silent the whole time, you mean there's an income tax? How did that? I don't know how that happened. I don't know. What? The largest tax increase in state? No. I'm convinced at this point, what the mainstream media is doing is just checking Brandy's social media, my social media, Cho's social media, and then deciding whether or not they should cover it when the session's over. That wasn't all Larry Springer said at this event.
Not to be flip about it, but if past history is prologue, yeah, you probably shouldn't necessarily believe that.
Wait a second. He's admitting that they have lied to us in the past. He is literally admitting it. Now, an email went out from Let's Go Washington earlier today. And it says, today during the legislative preview, Senator Jamie Peterson and Speaker Lori Jenkins announced they will not be holding hearings on the initiatives submitted to the Secretary of State's office 1 week ago. Wait a second. Mike, you realize what that means. I said I didn't think they were actually going to hold hearings on these things. People are saying, oh, they might actually pass the parental rights one. Why? Because they don't want to be on the wrong side of parents. They might actually, nah, I never thought they would. You know why? They want these as election issues. They want them as election issues. Now, it said something funny here. In response to their comments, Let's Go Washington founder Brian Haywood issued the following statement. Senator Pie Crust Peterson. Why is he calling him Pie Crust Peterson? Well, apparently, Jamie Peterson, the one who says that 13-year-old girls can get abortions, Jamie Peterson went on KUOW and told KUOW that he was going to break his promise about no income tax because it was a pie crust promise, like in Mary Poppins. Literally said that. So now Let's Go Washington is talking about having a pie crust protest where everybody shows up with their pie crusts. Are we going to show up with Frisbee pies like Marty McFly had in Back to the Future 3? Don't throw them at legislatures. Don't do that. But they admit that they lied. They admit they're going to be taxing all of us. Where is the mainstream media? Because this press release went out to everybody in the media. And I did a quick scan during the commercial break, and I did not see anybody reporting on this at all. What else did Larry Springer have to say?
I think one of the problems that we have, and this is going to be a central debate in this upcoming session, and while many of us, myself included, believe that a graduated income tax is a fair progressive tax that should pay for the services that the state needs. That said, if you want to do that, then you should automatically eliminate those taxes that are the most regressive. That's the B&O tax and the sales tax.
Now, that's a reasonable argument to make from a Democrat perspective. I still think it's dumb. I still think it's stupid. I still think it's bad economically. But at least it's an argument that we can have a discussion about. You think Bob Ferguson is ever going to repeal any tax at all? Of course not. They're just going to layer this on top of all the other taxes that they have.
So unless you do both of those things together, it's a false promise.
Okay, Larry Springer, you're on video saying this. How are you going to vote? How are you going to vote in the Washington legislature? Because it's coming up. And I don't see a lot of people breaking ranks with the Democrats. So how are you just said you want the sales tax and the B&O tax repealed? Well, is that actually going to happen? If not, are you still going to support the income tax?
And just the mechanics of an income, these are the questions that are going to be asked. I don't have an answer for them yet. We'll find that out as the session progresses. But the proposal will probably end up in court. We won't know or collect a dime, even if it's held up by the court, for 2 or 3 years. In the meantime, we haven't reduced a single regressive tax or lowered the B&O tax, and the argument will be, well, that will increase our deficit. So my question will be, then why are we doing this? Why don't we wait until we've got a revenue forecast that kind of looks good? That's the time you should start talking about a different tax system. We also just a year ago put in statute that an income tax is not going to be passed in Washington. I mean,
okay, so that's the other Let's Go Washington initiative from last year. So if you guys vote for that last year and now you vote for the income tax this year, everybody's going to call you a bunch of liars. Not the mainstream media, because they're not covering any of this. But what he is saying there is their entire plan. Well, what we want to do is pass the income tax and then repeal these other taxes. Do you think that'll actually happen? Do you think they'll ever repeal any tax? No, because they are addicted to spending. If you will spend money on quote-unquote art galleries, which aren't art galleries, they're rooms for men to go pleasure themselves and each other, you will literally drop money on anything. That does not require taxpayer money. You guys can go hang out in somebody's basement and do that if you really want to. And yet they're funding that. What other insanity are they funding?
we accepted the public's vote. And within a year, we're proposing an income tax. Yeah, you should probably be skeptical.
Yes, we all are skeptical. And how are you going to vote, Larry? How are you going to vote? You better believe after the show today, I'm reaching out to his office for comment. Now, the Wall Street Journal, and we've discussed this article a couple times this week, the Wall Street Journal destroyed this plan. Absolutely destroyed it. They write, Democratic Governor Bob Ferguson last month pitched a 9.9% tax on income exceeding $1 million amid a $2.3 billion budget shortfall. Revenue hasn't kept pace with the 60% surge in spending since the start of the pandemic, despite many tax increases. Since Democrats gained full control of the State House in 2017, they swiftly raised the tax on real estate sales from a flat 1.28% to a progressive rate that tops out at 3% on properties over $3 million. They enacted a 7% tax on capital gains exceeding $250,000 disguised as an excise tax on asset sales. They raised the estate tax 35% from 20% on estates exceeding $9 million. They also extended the state's 6.5% sales tax this fall to business services such as advertising, website design, and temporary staffing. That's hitting the schools, by the way. The gross receipts business tax rate this fall rose 2.1% from 1.75% for service businesses, with a surcharge on financial institutions rising from 1.5%. The state's cap and tax program adds 56 cents a gallon to the price of gasoline. This summer, the Democrats raised the gasoline tax by 6 cents more. On January 1st, the tax increased another 0.5 percentage points on many large businesses, following by another hike in 2027. They taxed everything, literally everything you can think of. Do you know now it is more expensive to quit smoking than to continue smoking, leaving out the healthcare costs? The items like Zim that are meant to help you quit smoking are now more expensive than cigarettes. They literally taxed everything. The Wall Street Journal talks about how bad this will be for residents, how bad this will be for businesses. And also, let's not forget, you've got taxpayers leaving. For the first time ever, you've got net loss migration out of Washington state. How many people, the last thing keeping them here is that we don't have an income tax? And how many people, as soon as that income tax are passed, are going to say, I'm going somewhere else, like Florida? Ron DeSantis saw this, and he called it out. He was basically warning everybody in Washington with a little bit of, hey, come to Florida. We'd love to have you. That was basically what Ron DeSantis was doing. He was saying this is what's going to happen. And one of the reasons Florida can spend on whatever its priorities are is because they have a surplus. Washington has a surplus, but they didn't manage their budget. And then with all the COVID money that was a one-time use thing, they set up all these permanent programs on one-time use money and are now desperate to keep them and are now desperate to continue paying for them. On top of that, they've got to continue funding the schools. And the schools have only seen a net loss of enrollment. You're talking about tens of thousands of students because of their woke insanity. So to make up all this so they can continue funding the guys in the art gallery who are doing whatever it is that they're doing, they're going to tax you. This is not about millionaires. This is not about billionaires. This is about you. Now, I think there's a play here before you give up total hope. And I've been screaming it from the rooftops. You need to continue exposing the fraud. You need to show and you need to put on social media. And we actually need to buy advertising. We need people to fund this. They want to raise taxes. They want to have an income tax. And by the way, stop calling it a millionaire's tax right now. Stop calling it that. It's just the income tax. Bob Ferguson state income tax. That's what you have to call it. They want to have an income tax, and meanwhile, they're paying for men to pleasure each other in an art gallery. They want a state income tax on you so they can provide laser hair removal and boob jobs for trans inmates. They want to have a state income tax on you so they can continue allowing fraud in the daycare systems where these non-existent daycares are getting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. That's the play. And you scream it from now through the end of the legislative session. That's what you do. We have already found that state auditors and county auditors have already found fraud before all the Somalian daycare stuff. Now they chalk it up to, oh, well, they did reimbursements without receipts, and there's no tracking of the money, and they overpaid people. It is so much worse than that. By the way, I've already seen the new Democrat talking point. Mike, you ready for this? The pressure's going to get so bad on Nick Brown and Katie Wilson and the rest of them that you know what the new talking point is going to be? What do you mean they did an audit? And the audit showed it was only $2 million. And it's in the scheme of a $37 billion budget, we are addressing the problems and we will fix it. What they're not telling you is this audit was done years ago on past revenue and that it wasn't done on any of the Somali or any other daycares for that matter. They're going to say, see, the audit was done. It didn't show that much. Ari Hoffman's full of it. Jonathan Cho's full of it. They're not going to tell you that it wasn't done on all the things that we're exposing. You have to keep up the pressure. You have to share it on social media. Now, mind you, I'm going to keep posting this stuff every single day, so make sure you're following me so you can share this stuff. Ari Hoffman Official at Facebook and Instagram, the Hofffather over at Twitter. But anytime you see this stuff, whether it's from me or whether from Cho or whether from Cam or whether from Brandy, you got to make sure all your friends know about it and you got to talk about it. I bet you, if I went down to Seattle Center right now, which is just a couple blocks away, and I said to the people who aren't tourists and aren't homeless people, hey, did you know that Bob Ferguson's about to pass an income tax? They'll go, what? He is? I had no idea. You have to talk to everybody about this. Literally everybody. And you have to say, do you know what they're spending the money on? They're spending the money on this. They're spending the money on that. And Bob Ferguson, not good at keeping his promises. Remember how he said he was going to hire all these new police officers? That hasn't happened at all. He said he was going to have all these taxes raised so for more law enforcement. That hasn't happened one bit. And in fact, now, because of their woke insanity, it's only going to be more dangerous around here. So what did they say? They said, you know what? Since we don't have enough police officers, we're going to install cameras. And we made fun of them a lot on the show. No police officers, but cameras, this flock camera system. And you know what? The camera system was helpful to investigators. You don't necessarily need to follow somebody. You just use the camera footage to figure out where they went. You can go get them later with less resources. It actually was kind of working. But now, because one small town said ICE is using these cameras, ICE, baby, is using this stuff, we have to shut the whole system down. That's what they're going to be doing. There's now legislation in this legislative session to start shutting down the flock camera system, which is beyond crazy, by the way, that they want to do this. They want to shut down the system. And I ask you, what's your alternative? You defunded the police, and now you're shutting down the camera system. Now, Bob Ferguson and crew talk about how they want you to be safe and how people aren't safe with ICE around. Bob Ferguson shared Tim Walsh, his new buddy, Tim Walsh, who came out here for a fundraiser. By the way, the memes you guys have had about that and some of the AI videos have been funny and disturbing. The one of Bob Ferguson making out with Tim Walsh, that was messed up. Really messed up. I don't think I can ever get that image out of my mind. But Bob Ferguson's buddy, who he brought in for his fundraiser, Tim Walsh, is under attack. So he shares a video about Tim Walsh calling for a day of unity, the guy who was talking about using the National Guard to go head-to-head with the federal government. A day of unity. Yes, this is the unity guy. Hey, by the way, Tim, didn't you leave the National Guard right before they deployed so you could go run for Congress? Yeah, just making sure. Bob Ferguson said, encouraging Washingtonians to join Minnesota in a day of unity, honoring Renee Good. Let's show unity through acts of good. Let's also raise our voices for the shared values that make our state and country great, including service, resilience, and the rule of law. The rule of law. You literally put into place the sanctuary policies to circumvent federal law. Are you kidding me with this? Bob Ferguson wrote on Twitter, I'm concerned that the federal government has denied access to evidence for local law enforcement in Minnesota. Minnesota must be allowed to seek justice. Well, you know what? I'm concerned that Washington is denying access to evidence for federal law enforcement through the flock camera system. The federal government must be allowed to seek justice. Yeah, you don't like it when it goes the other direction, do you now? Bob Ferguson was also talking about how we all have to be safe in Washington state, and we can't be safe if ICE is around. You know who wasn't safe? Because of your stupidity, because of your sanctuary laws? Trooper Christopher Gadd, who was killed by an illegal alien. Killed by an illegal alien that was supposed to be deported and wasn't deported because Jay Inslee signed into law the sanctuary state nonsense, and you helped execute it. Christopher Gadd, young father, had a young wife, had a 2-year-old child. He's dead now because of your sanctuary nonsense to circumvent the rule of law. Don't use big words you don't understand, Bobby. They're not trustworthy. They're not honest. The legislative cycle starts next week. This is only the tip of the iceberg that's coming for you this session. Guarantee it. They're coming for every single dollar you make. They're worse than Disneyland. When we come back, my friends, big protests in New York outside of Jewish schools where they're not saying they're pro-Palestine, they're saying they're pro-Hamas. Where's Zoran Mamdani? Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
Way there is. Talk Radio 570 KVI.
Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Don't forget, download the KVI app and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way you never miss a minute of the show. Also, rate and share so that way your friends can get in on the fun as well. Well, last night there was a video going viral on the interwebs, and what it showed was a whole bunch of people waving Hamas flags outside of a Jewish day school in Queens, New York. This is what they were chanting while they were out there. Did you hear what they said at the beginning of that? Say it loud, say it proud. Hamas is here? Hamas is here. Not even hiding the ball anymore. Not even hiding the ball anymore. Spare me your pro-Palestine nonsense, because that's exactly what it is. It's always been pro-Hamas. Why are they targeting a Jewish school? Now, I knew it was a Jewish school in Queens, but there's a lot of Jewish schools in Queens, and I don't think I saw the name of the school until this morning. It's the school where my nieces and nephew go to school. It's where my sister-in-law teaches. It's that school. I had friends who went to that school. I used to run events at that school. I know that school pretty well. This is a place I know. And a whole bunch of pro-Hamas activists showed up outside to protest a Jewish school. What's their excuse? Really, what's their excuse? Oh, were they holding an Israel event? Is that what it is? Oh, is that what you're mad about? Well, you're chanting for a terrorist organization that wants to destroy the Jewish state. Let's change this a little bit for a second. Imagine if a whole bunch of people showed up at a black college in KKK hoods. KKK hoods, chanting for the KKK. This would be international outrage. This would be everywhere. And yet, regarding this, I've only really seen this from influencers and from Jewish news sites in the New York Post. That's about it. Everybody else, silence. You know who else I haven't heard anything from? The man who said he was going to fight anti-Semitism, Zoran Mamdani. Have we heard anything from him? Let me do a quick check around here. Nothing. Nothing at all. This is who New York elected. And now the activists think since they have their guy in charge, they can do whatever they want. Look, there's repercussions. Elections have consequences. In Seattle, the homeless, the drug dealers, the criminals, they know they could do whatever they want, which is why you're seeing the homeless encampments growing in Seattle, even though it's only been a couple days of the Wilson administration. In New York, you're going to see more and more of this craziness because they know Zoran Mamdani is silent, because they know Zoran Mamdani agrees with them. You know how much worse it can get? This, according to Jewish News Syndicate, an 8-year-old Jewish girl was hospitalized with a fractured skull after being struck by a rock, which was thrown through a window on a bus she was aboard on the New Jersey Turnpike in Teaneck on Wednesday afternoon. The New Jersey State Police told JNS that it is seeking public assistance in its investigation of aggravated assault, to which it responded around 2:10 p.m. yesterday. The incident took place near exit 70AB on the Turnpike. Let's stop for a second here. Is this like what we see in Washington all the time? Is it rock throwing season? It's one of two things. Either somebody saw a bus filled with Jewish kids and decided to throw a rock at it, or some lunatic homeless guy, drug addict, mental health issue person decide to throw a rock at a school bus filled with kids. Either way, it ain't great. It ain't great. Based on preliminary investigation, a rock was thrown at a school bus traveling northbound in the right lane. The rock shattered a side window, struck an 8-year-old student, causing serious injuries. The kid's still in the hospital. A spokesman for the school said, "We do not yet know the motive behind the incident. It would be premature to draw conclusions. There were no visible markings on the bus identifying it as a Jewish school bus." So then what that probably means? Some random homeless dude just throwing rocks at buses. You think that Seattle's the only place where we're lawless? You think King County and Washington are the only place where there's lawlessness? No, my friends. It's the entire country. It's the entire country. And this could get so much worse. Because when you have major metropolitan areas like Seattle, like New York City, that are now run by socialist, communist psychopaths, they don't care about rule of law. They just want to burn it all down. They want you so scared that they can put their police in. They want you so desperate to afford things that you will turn to the government to provide them for you, because then you will continue to vote for the people that are going to get more money for you, quote unquote, by taking it from others, from the government. It's absolutely crazy. Now, there is some good news. There is a ray of sunshine in all this. I saw this morning. The United Arab Emirates has announced it will cut funds for citizens who want to study in the United Kingdom out of fear of Emirati students being radicalized by the Muslim Brotherhood Islamists on British campuses. You have no idea how big this is, by the way. The Middle East, one of the biggest countries in the Middle East, is saying, sorry, Europe, you're too far gone. We don't want our kids studying with you because they're going to be radicalized by the Muslim Brotherhood to come back and attack us. Sorry, guys, you're on your own. Do you realize how huge this is? Do you realize what this means? They don't want Hamas either. They don't want the Muslim Brotherhood either, and the two are related. They don't want them in their country because then they're going to start attacking them. The reason they don't want a Palestinian state is because they know that a Palestinian state is always going to be a terror state, and it's going to come after them. They don't just want Israel, they want the entire Middle East. They just want to see it burn, like Zoran Mamdani, like Katie Wilson, similar ideology. And no, I'm not saying that flippantly. I know what I just said. They're saying they are not going to subsidize kids going and learning in the UK anymore because the UK is lost and they are prone to be recruited by terrorist organizations. Do you understand how monumental that is? Here's something else. You have full-scale riots happening in Iran right now. Full-scale riots against the Ayatollah, against the regime. What President Trump did, cutting off the oil, cutting off their pipeline, cutting off their business, they don't have any money anymore. So they can't fund those services. So people are out in the streets realizing the Ayatollah is weak. The regime is weak. And now is their chance for an uprising. Normally when you have these uprisings, it's a few hours, and then the Ayatollah puts it down. The protesters are taking city after city after city after city. Now you're thinking to yourself, what does this have to do with America? What does this have to do with conservatism? Something fascinating is going on. There is state media in countries that are not the USA, state-controlled media. Do you know what they're running on state-controlled media? Tucker Carlson show. They're running Tucker Carlson show where he's talking about how great the Ayatollah regime is, where he's talking about how great the Iranian terrorist regime is. They are running Tucker Carlson, how the mighty have fallen. When you talk about America first, sounds like Iran first, sounds like Qatar first. That sounds like what's going on. And if you don't believe me, go look it up for yourself. It's on social media. You can see the clip for yourself. Tucker Carlson rambling. There's an Iranian and an Arab translator, and they've got a chyron running across the bottom with Arabic. It's all over the place. You can go see for yourself. This isn't just Ari Hoffman mad spouting off in his radio microphone. This is what's actually happening. This is what's going on. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson. Stop telling me these people represent conservatism. Stop telling me these people represent the Republican Party. Stop telling me these people are America first. He's Qatar first. He's Iran first. He's actually click first. Whatever's going to give him the clicks, that's what he wants. And Megyn Kelly is following him down the same dangerous path. You know, they should be talking about what's happening with Zoran Mamdani. They should be talking about what's happening with Katie Wilson. They should be talking about the fraud in Minnesota. They should be talking about all that. Instead, what are they obsessed with? Israel. That's what they are talking about. Tucker Carlson's newsletter, 90% of them are about Israel. Tell me how that's America first. When we come back, my friends, some more rays of sunshine. Representative Michael Baumgartner is going to join us to tell us about the investigation he's going to be doing into all the fraud, possibly or allegedly, here in Washington. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
on the Ari Hoffman Show, sponsored by Madrona Financial.
Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And can I just say, number one, it is so good to be back. I missed this job while I was gone for 2 weeks. It's so good to do what I do. I'm so lucky to be able to do what I do, be able to have Mike here with me, and for us to be able to do this for all of you. I'm so grateful for that. Just want to throw that out. A little bit cheesy, but do love it. Throwing that one out there. Okay. I saw good news in the Seattle Times. We don't normally use Seattle Times for good news because we usually just make fun of them. And this is no different. They talk about a prank they did to one of the Seahawks. And the more I read the article, the more I'm like, you guys are mean. And for the Seattle Times to think this is funny or a human interest, it just kind of feels mean. Plus, it kind of feels unoriginal. Look, I know this is something that happens in sports. I've seen enough movies. I know enough people in sports. I know this is something they do. But to write this up and embarrass the guy more? You judge. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. The Seahawks, who earned a first-round bye for playoffs, spent a little time this week dining out and pulling pranks. Over 30 of the Seahawks defensive players went out for the annual rookie dinner on Wednesday night at Metropolitan Grill, a high-end steakhouse in downtown Seattle. The rookie dinner, common across the NFL and typically taking place after the regular season, involves one or more of the team's rookies paying for everyone's meal, an always expensive check full of lavish charges on drinks and food. After dinner, the Seahawks veterans presented a fake six-figure check to rookie safety Nick Emenwari on Wednesday worth $114,588.35, a number that stunned the 21-year-old from South Carolina, who is in the first year of his four-year rookie contract of $11,601,260. He said a word I can't say on the radio. One teammate is heard saying to him, who posted videos of the dinner on his Instagram as he looked at the fake check, "Pull out the Amex, baby." Now, here's the thing. Number one, I don't feel bad for you because of how much money you make. That's number one. Number two, still mean. Still mean regardless. And then you're videoing it and putting it on social media, and then the Seattle Times is writing it up? No. The first 2 minutes, I dead thought it was real, he told reporters. Craig Summers, one of the Metropolitan Grill's lead hosts, had run up the tab on the request of the Seahawks players in on the joke. Craig said that the players had asked him to build out an outrageous dummy check, Metropolitan Grill general manager Corin Griffiths said on Thursday. There was a double service charge, not something that normally happens, but helped bump up the check to make it ridiculous. Summers also punched in wine bottles that cost over $10,000 to steepen the bill. Definitely got a strong reaction. I'm glad he took it in the nature it was meant to be, which is just in jokes. It is good to give the ribbing within a team. You know, this isn't like the way it is in the movies. In the movies, it's the rookie who doesn't have the big contract yet. You're talking about a guy who makes $11 million? I don't feel that bad for you. I'm sorry, I don't. Griffiths added about the team who frequents the steakhouse. They are probably the most polite group ever. Oh, a little good news. Everyone is just really gracious and sweet to people who stop to talk to them. Shortly afterwards, the players presented him with a real dinner check for $22,524.85. How do you spend that much on dinner? I took a lot of people out for a lot of barbecue while I was in Israel, and we ordered a lot of stuff. We didn't even come anywhere near in orbit of that. I think the highest bill I had was $500. Take a bunch of people out for that 8-course barbecue place called Pitmaster that I love, which included unlimited wine and drinks in the middle. By the way, Mike, this was something I didn't expect to like. They had a drink in between. You know how I told you all I really wanted to do was go and have a drink with my boys in a bar? I told you that was something I wanted to do. They bring out this pink thing. It looks like cough syrup. And I go, what is this? And you can smell the arak in it. You can smell that kind of stuff, that black licorice shoe leather kind of stuff. But it was pink. And I'm like, hell, everything else here is good. Let's have it. It was really delicious. I think they cut it with like a Kool-Aid kind of stuff, but it was delicious. I don't even like any of that, but it was amazing. So, Emenwari said, wait, we didn't have $114,000 worth of stuff, so I'm looking at the bill. I'm thinking of putting it in ChatGPT and telling it to calculate it for me real fast, but by then they brought the other one out. He said he knew of the rookie dinner tradition and the pranks often involved, but the vets did a good job making him think the bill was actually real. They kind of psych you for it. They keep telling you over and over and over, get your Amex out or whatever. Emenwari has had a stellar first season with the Seahawks, totaling 84 tackles, 8 tackles of loss, 2.5 sacks, 11 passes defended, and 1 interception despite missing 4 games due to an ankle injury. The Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate most recently had a team-high 7 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and a quarterback hit against the 49ers on Saturday, helping to hold San Francisco to just 3 points. So, as much as I'm not the biggest fan of this particular practical joke, I get the spirit with which it was intended. And it has been my experience, whenever I have run into a Seahawk or whenever members of my family have run into a Seahawk, that regardless of which year it was, they were always a good-natured bunch. We went to a wedding one time at a hotel in Renton. The Seahawks were all there. They were so friendly. They were so nice. It was actually really nice to see. So give that one to the Seahawks. Well, my friends, that's going to wrap it up for us today and this week, my friends. But fear not, we'll be back on Monday with more insane stories and more exciting guests.